All right, so are you ready to dig into this composting thing? I gotta say, when you first sent me all this stuff, I thought it might be a little bit, you know, dry,
Yeah.
but I was so wrong.
It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's way more interesting than I ever thought it would be.
Yeah, it seems simple, but then you get into it and it's like, whoa.
Yeah, so in this deep dive, we are going to equip you with everything you need to know about composting
Oh,
to actually, like, get started yourself.
cool.
We're talking about, like, the what, the why, the how, and even how to troubleshoot when things go wrong.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, but before we get into all of that,
Yeah.
I came across this fact when I was prepping, and it just, like, totally blew my mind.
Okay.
Did you know that almost a third of what we throw away
Oh, wow.
could actually be composted?
It's true, and it's really a shame because it's going to waste in a landfill, but also it's not just about reducing waste, it's about creating something really valuable,
Right.
which is this nutrient-rich soil amendment that
Yeah.
really helps plants to thrive.
So, okay, let's unpack what composting actually is. It's basically like nature's way of recycling.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it.
Organic materials,
Yeah.
kitchen scraps, and yard waste
Uh-huh.
all break down, and then they transform into this, like, miracle grow, basically.
Yeah, it's all about the microscopic heroes of decomposition.
Okay.
So bacteria and fungi and even earthworms.
Oh, wow.
Those guys are really the engines of the whole process.
Interesting.
They break down all those organic materials into their simplest forms.
So they're, like, eating all that stuff,
Exactly.
and they need the right food to do their job right.
Yeah.
That's where this whole concept of the greens and browns comes in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a balanced diet for all those hardworking microbes.
Yes, it's all about the carbon to nitrogen ratio.
Okay.
So greens, like your vegetable scraps, grass clippings, are high in nitrogen, and that's what fuels rapid decomposition.
Okay.
And then you have your browns, like dried leaves and wood chips and things like that, are high in carbon.
Right.
And that gives those microbes the energy they need to kind of break everything down.
So if you're like, picture your compost pile as like a Thanksgiving dinner plate,
Okay.
you want about 2 parts browns to 1 part greens
Right about, yeah, that's a great analogy.
to keep those microbes happy and the decomposition process like humming along.
Exactly. And maintaining that balance is super crucial because if you have too much nitrogen, it can get a little too enthusiastic, the
Yeah.
decomposition.
Yeah.
And you can get like some not so pleasant odors.
Like stinky.
Yeah. And then if you have too much carbon, things are going to slow down to a crawl.
Like molasses in January.
Pretty much.
Okay, well, speaking of things that can go wrong, let's talk about what should and shouldn't go into your compost bin.
Okay.
There's some definite no-nos, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So like what?
You don't want to put in any meat or dairy products, fats and oils. Those are a big one.
Why?
Because they not only attract pests, but they decompose really slowly and they can create an imbalance in your compost.
I see.
Yeah.
So stick to plant-based materials like vegetable scraps, fruit peels, coffee grounds. I bet you compost those, right?
Oh, yeah, every single one.
You can also add eggshells,
Yes.
yard waste, shredded newspaper, even cardboard.
Oh, yeah,
It's amazing what those little decomposers can handle.
it is.
But we also want to avoid adding in diseased plants or pet waste,
Yes, absolutely.
because that can introduce harmful bacteria and just totally disrupt the whole process.
Yeah, you want to create that right environment for those beneficial microbes to thrive and do your magic.
Okay, so now that we know what composting is and kind of what to feed those hungry microbes, let's talk about the different ways that you can actually compost. You mentioned there's a few different methods, right?
Yeah, there's that classic backyard composting. Then there's those compost tumblers that we were talking about before. And then for people with limited space or that want to compost indoors, there's something called vermicomposting,
What?
which uses worms.
Worms.
Yeah,
That sounds interesting.
it does.
So we got backyard piles and bins,
Yeah,
compost tumblers, and worm bins.
that's right.
So many options.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear a little bit more about each of these methods.
Okay.
What are the pros and cons?
Sure.
Which one might be best for, different situations?
Those are all great questions, and that's exactly what we're going to cover next. So let's delve into the world of backyard composting first. So backyard composting,
Okay.
that's a great place to start if you have a little bit of outdoor space.
Right.
It's the most traditional method, and it's really as simple as it sounds.
So you literally just like pick a spot in your yard and start piling up browns and greens?
Exactly. You can either just create a freestanding pile,
Okay.
which is like the simplest approach, or you can actually build a compost bin.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So what's the like pros and cons of each?
So a pile is definitely like the easiest and the cheapest. It can be a little messier though.
Yeah.
And not as aesthetically pleasing,
True.
especially if you're in a neighborhood with like close yards.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Totally.
So a bin is a little bit more tidy.
Yeah, it's contained.
Yeah, and it can also help with pest control.
Oh.
A little bit easier to keep critters out.
So like raccoons and stuff?
Exactly, yeah.
Interesting.
But they do require a little more effort to build or purchase.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So basically, whether you've got a pile or a bin, you're just layering those browns and greens.
Right.
Making sure to maintain that ideal carbon to nitrogen ratio that we were just talking about.
Yeah, and another key thing about backyard composting is turning the pile regularly.
Oh, why is that so important?
Well, turning it helps to aerate the compost.
Okay.
So it's providing all those essential oxygen-loving microbes with the air that they need to really thrive. And it also helps to distribute the heat and the moisture evenly.
So it's all about like mixing it up.
Exactly.
Okay, so for backyard composting, you need a bit of space, some basic materials, and a willingness to get your hands dirty.
Exactly.
Literally.
Yeah.
But what if you don't have a lot of space? Or maybe you're not really into this whole turning the compost thing.
Yeah.
What then?
Well, then there's other great options available.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like those compost tumblers that you mentioned?
Exactly. Yeah. Those are a fantastic option, especially for folks that like convenience and efficiency.
Sure.
So tumblers are basically an enclosed bin.
Okay.
And you just rotate it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And how does that help with the composting process?
Well, the rotation really mixes the compost materials together really effectively, and it makes sure that everything is aerated.
Got it.
And evenly exposed to those hardworking microbes.
Yeah.
And that constant mixing really speeds up the decomposition process.
So how much faster are we talking here?
Oh, you can get finished compost in as little as a couple of months.
Wow.
Compared to like 6 months or even a year with the traditional pile.
That's quite a difference.
It is, yeah.
I bet that they're also like a lot more aesthetically pleasing.
They are, yeah.
Than like a big old compost pile in your backyard.
Yeah, and they tend to be a little bit more pest resistant because they're enclosed.
Right. That makes sense.
So those are really great.
Okay, so we've got backyard composting if you've got the space and you don't mind like doing a little bit of work.
Right.
We've got compost tumblers.
Yeah.
Which are more efficient and convenient.
Yeah.
But now I want to talk about this vermicomposting thing.
Okay.
This is the one that really piqued my curiosity.
So vermicomposting is a really fascinating method that uses the power of worms to break down organic material.
Worms.
Yes.
So I'm basically like creating a worm farm in my home.
Pretty much.
Okay, that sounds a little strange at first.
It does.
But I trust you when you say that it's clean and odor-free.
It is, surprisingly, yeah.
And that these worms are like incredibly efficient at what they do.
Oh, they are, yeah.
So how does it work?
Oh,
Do I just like toss my kitchen scraps into a bin full of worms?
Pretty much, yeah. You start with a worm bin.
Okay.
Which can really just be as simple as a plastic tub with some bedding material in there.
Okay.
Like shredded newspaper or coconut coir. And then you add your red wigglers, and then you can start feeding them your kitchen scraps.
So what kind of stuff can they handle?
Pretty much anything that comes out of your kitchen that isn't meat, dairy, or oily.
Right.
So your fruits and veggie scraps, coffee, grounds, eggshells.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can even put in like bread crusts and tea bags.
And they just eat all of that.
They do, and they consume all the food scraps.
It's amazing.
And they break them down into these incredibly nutrient-rich castings.
Castings?
Yeah, it's essentially worm poop.
Worm poop.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a little weird.
It is.
But also amazing.
It is.
So these worm castings are like what? Miracle Grow for your plants.
Pretty much, yeah. They're like black gold for your plants.
Cool.
Yeah, they're full of all these beneficial microbes and nutrients, and they're also a much gentler fertilizer than a lot of the commercial stuff.
So you can use these worm castings to like enrich your garden beds.
Yes.
To like pot your house plants or even create a liquid fertilizer.
Exactly. Yeah. And the really cool thing about vermicomposting is that it's super space efficient.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, you can literally just set up a worm bin under your sink.
What?
On a balcony.
No way.
Yeah, in a closet, anywhere that's cool, dark, and well ventilated.
I had no idea you could do that.
You can.
So it's a really good option for people who live in apartments.
Yes, definitely.
Or, you know, people who want to compost year-round.
Yeah.
Even if they live in a colder climate.
Exactly. And it's also a great way to connect with nature and kind of observe these amazing creatures at work.
I have to admit, I am starting to warm up to this whole worm bin idea.
I think you would enjoy it.
Okay, so we've covered 3 really different composting methods here.
Yeah.
Backyard composting, compost tumblers, vermicomposting.
It's amazing.
There's truly like a method out there for everyone,
Yeah,
no matter your lifestyle
definitely.
or like the space that you have.
Yeah.
But once we have this like beautiful finished compost,
Right.
how do we actually know that it's ready to use?
That's a great question.
And what are the best ways to actually use it?
So that brings us to the next exciting stage of composting, which is the harvest.
Okay, so we've got our compost like cooking away out there, whether it's in a pile or a tumbler or, with the help of some worms.
Yeah.
How do we actually know when it's ready to use?
Well, there are some telltale signs that it's done.
Okay.
So finished compost should have like a rich, dark brown color and a crumbly texture.
Oh, okay.
And I'll have that really earthy, pleasant aroma you might associate with like a forest floor.
Okay, so no more chunks of banana peels
Exactly. Yeah.
or eggshells.
Everything should be fully broken down, no recognizable scraps.
Got it.
That's how you know those microbes have done their job.
So then we get to reap the rewards of all their hard work.
That's right.
What are some of the ways we can actually use this compost that we've created?
Well, you can mix it into your garden beds to enrich the soil and provide all those essential nutrients for your plants.
It's like a natural fertilizer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even better.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, unlike chemical fertilizers, compost provides a slow and steady release of nutrients, and it also improves the soil structure.
Okay.
It helps with drainage and water retention.
Wow.
It's like the ultimate soil conditioner.
That's amazing. It's like it started as kitchen scraps and now it's this like magical thing that makes plants grow.
Yeah, it really is.
And you can also use it as a top dressing for existing plants.
Yes, absolutely. It gives them like a gentle boost of nutrients.
Okay, cool.
Encourages growth and blooms.
And I've also heard that you can use compost to create healthy potting mixes.
It gives essential nutrients for seedlings and container plants.
We've been talking a lot about the gardening benefits,
Yeah.
which are great,
Right.
but there's a much bigger picture here, right?
It is.
It's not just about having a thriving garden. It's about having a positive impact on the environment.
Absolutely.
I mean, every time we compost, we're diverting stuff from landfills.
Exactly.
And landfills are like a major source of methane,
They are.
which is a really potent greenhouse gas.
Yes. Much more potent than carbon dioxide.
So we're not just like reducing waste,
Yeah.
but we're actively helping to combat climate change
You got it.
by composting.
It's a small act with big implications.
And then by creating this healthy soil, we're also helping to support sustainable food production.
Yes.
And restore like ecosystems.
Exactly.
So it's like a win-win.
It is.
For us and for the planet.
It's amazing how something as simple as composting can connect us to these like larger cycles in nature.
Yeah.
And reminds us that waste is really just a resource in the wrong place.
It's all about like closing the loop, right?
It is.
Like taking what we take from the earth and like giving it back to the earth.
Yeah.
Nourishing the systems that sustain us.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
It is.
And it's something that anyone can do.
Absolutely.
It's like anywhere.
Yeah, no matter what your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Or how much space you have.
I'm really glad we did this deep dive because it's really been eye-opening. And I'm really feeling inspired to start composting myself.
Good.
And I hope our listeners are too.
Me too.
Composting is clearly like more than just a gardening technique.
It is.
It's like a way of life.
Yeah.
It's a commitment to sustainability.
It's a powerful act.
Yeah.
Of environmental stewardship.
Well, it's been awesome chatting with you today.
It's been a pleasure.
I learned a ton.
Good.
And I'm so glad that we got to share this with our listeners.
Me too. Thanks for listening, everybody.